So, The Mandalorian and Grogu is finally out, which means we finally have a new Star Wars movie to talk about, instead of just remembering what we were given last time. Just sucks to be reminded that out of the 12 to 13 Star Wars movies, more than half of them are bad. So did The Mandalorian and Grogu finally bring Star Wars back to its roots and make us excited to see Star Wars in theaters again? I guess. But, the kids will like this one though. At best, this movie will just be remembered as a solid extension of the show, and a fun movie to put on in the background while you're doing something else, which is fine. Star Wars is meant to be for everyone, not just obsessed man-children like myself and a lot of other Star Wars fans out there. But I think because it's been such a prolonged period of time of Disney only putting out Star Wars shows, good and bad, people just want to see Star Wars back to being in movies, which leads into the fact that The Mandalorian and Grogu still feels like a show. The Mandalorian and Grogu can best be described as one long arc from the show. It's like when in Clone Wars they would have some arcs that were 1, 2, 3 episodes, and some that were 4 episodes for the real beefy arcs. And The Mandalorian and Grogu does not do a good job at hiding its episodic feel. There are clear chapters in this story, and when you're watching the movie, you can tell when one episode would have ended and the next would start. And for me, it doesn't make it feel like a movie to me, and it just kind of messes with the pacing a bit, in my opinion, along with something else that I'll get into later. But what The Mandalorian and Grogu go through in this movie is still very entertaining, and it makes it worth to see this movie still. Just the bar is pretty low, so it doesn't take much for me to be satisfied with Star Wars content at all at this point. And that's just my issue with this movie though. Why does it exist? And why now? Why not 3 to 5 years ago when The Mandalorian and Grogu were at their peak marketing and novelty wise? To me, it just feels like the creators of this film just kind of felt like making a Star Wars movie rather than genuinely wanting to. And you can see that in the way this movie is written. The dialogue in this movie is so stock, so stale, so repetitive. It genuinely reminded me of some of the prequel dialogue that everyone makes memes about now. Rada the Hutt is the most boring dude ever, and no, it's not just because of his personality. I mean, it's partly because of that. But it's because of the way he talks. Why does Rada the Hutt sound like he worked at a corporate office for 30 years? He sounds nothing like the rest of his family, and I'm not saying I need him to speak a different language the whole movie, but at least sound like you want to be here, bro. And Jeremy Allen White's performance isn't the only one that was wooden, but we're supposed to actually care about his character, so he's getting the worst of it. And I think that's just what this movie is missing. Care. See, for a while now, I've noticed that in most Star Wars projects we get, nobody cares. Performances, writing, visuals, it all looks so boring or stale. And with the projects that do have love and care in them, there is a major quality gap. Maul, Shadow Lord, Andor, Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2, these projects have people working on them that like Star Wars and knew exactly what kind of story they wanted to tell, and most of all, they planned it out. I don't know why that is so rare for Disney to do when it comes to Star Wars or anything for that matter. And I know Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni worked on parts of Maul and The Mandalorian and its earlier creation, but it just seems like they got a little complacent with this movie rather than giving it the same effort that they gave season 1 or even 2. But it's easy to hate on things, so I want to talk about some of the things I liked in this movie. The music banged. I liked all the little creatures. And Mando and Embo are both pretty good at oral farming. From this point on, I might as well just put up a spoiler warning just in case you're watching this video and you haven't seen the movie yet. Go watch it, it's pretty much digestible for anybody. Jokes aside though, the start of the film is actually a great opening and is exactly what I expected from this movie. It's directed well, there's little dialogue so it makes it bearable to just shut your brain off, and it's definitely the best action scene in the entire movie, mostly because you can clearly see it. All of the other action scenes in this film have such bad shaky cam that it was a little hard for me to see what was going on in most of the fights. I will say that I also did enjoy the big dragon snake fight as well, but mostly because it just felt like Star Wars, with us getting to see a big monster fight. But directly after this is where I have one of my biggest issues with the movie. So Mando fights Big Snake, gets poisoned, and is basically on the brink of death, so now we get an entire chunk of the movie where Grogu is alone and has to take care of Mando. And while I really like this idea and concept, it just goes on for way too long and kills any sort of pacing the movie had. And I love Grogu. There was pieces of this chunk of the movie that I liked, but I think if you just trimmed down like 10 minutes of it, you could have had that same feeling without making people fall asleep. Because let me tell you, this scene, people are going to skip parts of it if they ever even choose to rewatch it. It just goes on for way too long. Anyway, though, I think this movie still justifies its existence in being entertainment for both casual and diehard Star Wars fans. I know a lot of us were expecting a lot more, but until Disney gets some actual directors and spends a lot more time on the writing for their movies, we're just destined for Star Wars films to end up like this. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, but after Andor and Maul, we can see the true potential that Star Wars has as a franchise, and I just hope they can recognize that they need to put a little bit more effort into creating something truly great. So overall, this movie is something fun for you to do on your weekend and to maybe show some casual Star Wars fans. It's a pretty cute movie, and honestly, if you know someone that hasn't seen anything from Star Wars before, you could probably start them out with this and they'd have a good time. I just hope that this movie does at least okay in the box office, so we can continue to go see Star Wars in theaters. But at the same time, I want it to be low enough so that Disney realizes they just need to put more effort in. So the Mandalorian and Grogu gets 6 out of 10. Yeah, sure.